What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Win-Win Effect podcast, presented by WINJECT Studios. I am your host, Chris Ross, and if you're new to us, welcome. Really excited and blessed to have you here for the first time. The outcome that we're after in each episode of this show is to introduce you to as many people as I cross paths with to inspire and help you, our listeners, to manifest anything you want out of life. How I go about achieving this is one heartbeat, one mission, one outcome, that's success. Our featured guest for today's episode is revenue strategist, business performance optimizer, podcaster, entrepreneur, Melanie Benson. This powerhouse specializes in aligning visionary, game-changing entrepreneurs emerging as leaders with the most powerful mindset, actions, and strategies that propel them to a level of success they never knew they could achieve. Not only is she the host of Amplify Your Success podcast, but she also serves on the Women Speakers Association executive team. I can go on and on and on with all the accolades that she's achieved throughout her career, but take my word for it, you might want to pay attention to today's episode. Some of the things that we unpack is how to stand out as the authority in a crowded market, how to transform your competitors into a 24/7 sales force, the secret to inspiring podcast listeners to become your new client, the importance of building a golden thread, picking the right audiences, developing KLT factor in 20 minutes, and her simple 3-word trick that amplifies your authority without being hypey. And if that isn't enough value in today's jam-packed episode, be sure and check out her free gift inside the description box. Before I kick this up a couple notches and dive right in, stand by for a quick message, and I'll see you on the other side.
This podcast is part of the WINJECT Studios network, where podcasters come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how to apply to join the network, go to www.winject.com. That's WINJECT.com. If you're ready to make a difference through podcasting, then we're ready to see you there.
What is up, everybody? As you can tell, I have the coach with the mostest, Miss Melanie Benson, the Profit Amplifier. I'm really excited to have you on. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Oh my God, I got chills after that intro too. I'm like, boom! It creates some momentum and energy.
Yeah. I have a lot of guests that have been on. That's obviously season 3, the clips and whatnot. Obviously, we're in season 4 right now, so we'll make sure that we're going to put a little B-roll of you for season 5 coming out here soon. I think I'm on episode 20 something for this season, and I'm really excited that as this show kind of takes off and changes, I guess, some of the format, some of the messaging, and obviously bringing different type of substance to the listeners because of what they're really wanting. And I do a lot of feedback stuff, and I love your show. And I've really immersed myself in a lot of your content. And that's one of the major reasons I was excited about this show and this episode particularly, because there's a lot of people in the marketplace today. They say, oh, this is a saturated market. There's too much competition. Well, not really if you're doing it the right way and building that type of authority and doing it through substance and value, which you do effortlessly. And I'm really excited. Thank you so much for coming on again.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
I would give you a high five, but
yeah, virtual high fives.
Virtual high fives.
Well, soon we'll start shooting this stuff in person, flying out, and then all the different things we have going on, and got some big plans for the Win-Win Effect. But some of the guests that have been on, they get kind of addicted to the music. Like they'll be singing it. Even Adam, the person that introduced us, love Adam, by the way. Yeah. So
Adam.
Yeah. Also, there's a couple other people that we do know. I was on a Hustle and Flowchart podcast with Joe and Matt.
Love those guys.
Yes, they're some of my favorite people. When I went to come out with the show, I really didn't know what I really wanted to talk about other than prepping the trade schools on how to sell the programs that I sold them. And I was like, okay, what do I really do? And I reached out to Joe. I was like, Joe, I'm finally going to do it, man. I'm going to come out with my own show. He's like, finally. So he's actually the one that pointed me in the right direction on how to do what to do when it comes to podcasting. So a lot of mutual respect there between us. I guess we kind of kick this off, and I know that I do intros and all that stuff afterwards, and the promos, and really shining a light on your all your achievements. And there's a long list of your bio, and I'm not even going to try to attempt to read that sucker, right? But to kind of get the listeners a little bit more about what you do for a living and how you're able to really stand out in the marketplace, can you shine a light on maybe some of the spotlights and some areas you would love to talk about today?
Well, I always get a little giggle when people are like, wow, I'm not reading that whole bio. Of course not. We'd bore everybody. But when you've been doing this for 21 years this year, you do kind of have a little bit of a list. So what we do is we take people who are either emerging as an authority or they are already an expert. They've got great talent, but they're feeling like they're doing all the right things, but they're still invisible. And we help them repackage their authority so that it's authentically connecting to them, so they can really authentically give that light out there in the world. And I think a lot of people, they get into their head, and you were mentioning earlier, like, there's so much competition for my topic. Why would I go out and start a podcast or guest on that topic? And my belief is that when we really know how to amplify our awesomeness, what's really unique to us, I often call it your superpower, then we are able to create our own little niche, have our most authentic, unique conversation that's really magnetic to more opportunity and ideal clients. And so that's what we do. We take people all the way through the mindset shift, the structure of having the right irresistible offer, and into how do you make that visible out there in the world, especially if you've got a lot of competition in your market.
And they say it's a lot of competition. I mentioned, and that's something we both share, is you really stand out through a lot of your value, but you have to get really pinpoint on the people you're trying to reach. Everyone's trying to sell to everyone. You can't sell to everyone. You need to sell to your ideal client. Like, what does that look like? And then work yourself, get to the outcome, end result, and then work backwards and start reverse engineering some of the ways for you to really deliver your message the right way. That's one thing I do like about your show. I don't know if it's very methodically and very systematic. You structure your show to touch on different audiences, it sounds like to me. And that's just for me outside looking in and me breaking down programs I've done over my career and what led me here. But you do it very systematically and shining a light on certain segments of your show. And you have, of course, everyone has their zone of genius on what the things they want to talk about. But you do a really good job, even when you're interviewing guests, shining a light on them and kind of shutting up as a host. That's one of the things where people have a hard time doing. They think that, okay, great, I need to ask questions. No, you need to frame the question to get the information from your guest. And that's something you do really well.
Thank you. This actually, I don't want to say it's a pet peeve, but I think it's a real growth opportunity for people who are out there guesting on podcasts as well as the hosts. Podcasting is a media. It is an opportunity to showcase our expertise, whether you're hosting the show or you're guesting on shows. But what happens a lot is people, when they're pitching themselves to be a guest, they oftentimes don't really have a system in place to magnetize their topic. And so they throw out some general stuff. A lot of hosts will say, hey, give me a couple of ideas of some subject areas or some questions you might want me to ask. And what happens is they're just bad questions. And I'm like, there's really no strategic value that the audience is going to get. And I'm in the 8th year of hosting a podcast. I've done over 1,000 interviews. I've booked hundreds of people to get on stages, my stages, other people's stages. And what I found is oftentimes people just don't know how to package what they do. So there's this, what I call golden bridge. And so when I'm asking questions, I'm looking at the questions my guest has submitted, and I'm like, okay, how does that help me illuminate how my listener can amplify success in whatever that expertise area is? So I'm often building their golden bridge for them so that I know that there's real great juice and excitement and inspiration and some actionable steps that will come out for the listener. I don't always get it 100% because some people are really hard. Let's pull it out of you. Come on.
I feel like sometimes I have to go deep inside of someone and really pull it out. Sometimes they're not really clear on their messaging and they sometimes not understand fully what I'm trying to ask them. And I'm really shining a light. I'm trying to tee them up. So if I tee them up properly by anchoring and framing, when I'm dropping an anchor, I'm dropping on a certain emotion to get that emotion from. You have to use a lot of emotional intelligence that way to kind of understand some of their cadence, like, because everyone speaks differently. It's like a perfect example. Do you know Justin Breen? I had him on the show recently. You know, I'll have to. This guy's phenomenal. He's been in the journalist type of field, interviewed probably, I don't know, at least over 100, about maybe 100 something type of people in different areas of entrepreneurship. And I think over 1,000 entrepreneurs, specifically talking about one topic of his. And what he does, he's phenomenal. He came on this show and he's an introvert. Okay. And like people like us, we are expressive and we like to have a conversation and really get deep. Well, he gives off these smoke screens, doesn't really give you the long answers, just like short answers. Like, I'm one of the best in the game of doing what I do. Just started off right off the jump street just with that. Well, I had to flex a little bit and show what I really do for a living, and using my emotional intelligence to get the information out of him and make him and create the environment for him to feel safe to share. That's something you do really well. And I noticed on 2 of your episodes that I was listening to, how important is that as a podcaster on making your guests feel comfortable for them to be a little bit more open to share?
You know, it's funny. I never really thought about it that way, but that may just be the type of, I vet out very carefully the people that are coming on my show. And so I don't get a lot of people I don't already have rapport and connection with, but there has been a few. And what I've noticed is in the green room before we go on, I actually turn my video on because I record on Zoom, and I have a conversation with them. And some of them are like, we're doing video. I'm like, no, like, I just want to make sure we're connecting. Right. And what I found is having a couple minutes to connect, especially for someone who I don't have a real strong relationship with. And I asked them, like, is there anything that I can do to make this an amazing interview for you? So I guess what I do is I kind of create that intention and that clarity before we go live. And I clarify a couple things and I make sure they know who we're talking to. And I say, look, here's some questions I'm going to ask you that you didn't submit. Mm-hmm. And so that way they're prepared. So I guess that's my approach. Mm-hmm. But because I'm naturally inquisitive, mm-hmm. and the way I frame my questions, and I'm very intentional about showcasing their expertise. I know a lot of hosts, they talk more than their guests do. You know, and and that's okay because that's the format of their show. But I think that's what creates some intimidation because people are like, shut up. How am I supposed to fit in here? You know, like, I don't know where I'm being showcased. And so you kind of have to know what you're getting into. And this is a great reason to get super familiar with the show flow of your host before you pitch. And make sure that the environment and the culture they're creating in their podcast is what you want to participate in.
100%. I love that you just said that. And that's why I merge myself and a lot of people's, even if I do have rapport, I still want to listen to some of their information and some of their content. So I want to, one, figure out their cadence and some things they like to bring up when they get kind of pigeonholed themselves. Because I've hear a lot of sometimes hosts, it's not their really lack of questioning skills. They haven't put in the reps that you put in with 8 years on, being a host. There's a certain amount of reps you put in and being able to adapt to uncomfortable conversations when it kind of gets dull. And I'm okay with using my pauses on purpose to get more information out of the guest so they can make them feel a little bit more open to expand. Like, what do you mean by that? Because I'm not asking the questions for me. I'm asking the questions for the listeners.
Yeah.
If they're not going to understand it, that's fine. Yeah, go ahead.
Don't you think that that's a little bit the confidence of the host? Because I know I know a lot of people who start a podcast, they don't have any idea what they're doing. And kudos that you're jumping in, you're taking bold action. I really want to give you a big shout out and acknowledge you. And it's worth hiring a coach or getting somebody to help you really craft your unique presence as a host and to learn like how to pull the best out of your guest. Because otherwise what's happening is, oh, let me read my question. Hi, how are you? Like, and it's so stagnant. It doesn't have life and energy. And I think that's a lot of people are like, Melanie, how can I make my podcast more profitable? Melanie, how can I leverage my podcast to get more traction as an authority? I'm like, we got to change how you're hosting your show right now.
Love this. What is the first What is the first step for you when you're going to deliver that message over to someone that doesn't really have an idea of, or maybe even understanding what a format is supposed to sound like on a show?
Are we talking about as a host or when
As
I'm
a host?
guesting on
Yeah, as a
someone's show?
host. Like,
Yeah.
so like, yeah. So say like, Coach Melanie, I really need your help and I love your show and I would love to like set out kind of some framework and maybe some areas of opportunity for me to, amplify my message. Obviously that was my little plug for you. And
Nice.
how can I get my message out there in a way that the listeners want to receive the message, not by just by I want to deliver it. That's a totally different mix, but expand on that if you can. What's your first step?
Well, so here's a little bit of behind the scenes. Now, I'm really picky about who we have on the show, and we actually vet them out and make sure they know how to deliver great content before they get accepted on the show. And if I find that somebody wants to be on the show, but they're not ready, one of the things we'll often recommend is that they go through what I call my Get Magnetic messaging program, because I am not going to coach and mentor people for free through this process. It's a lot to get it right. And I find there's three things we're looking for, and or three things we guide people on if they're going to go through the process. And one is, do you have a topic that really positions your unique awesomeness? And this is part of my second pillar, which is what we call the rocks method. Because what's happening, we've talked a few times about this crowded market, and, like the podcasting world is growing at the speed of light. Like we closed 2019 with 950,000 active podcasts. We closed 2020, I think, with something like 1,000,002 active podcasts. It's just going to be growing. And what that means is there's a real need for content, but there's also a lot of noise. And so when you're in a lot of noise, you've got to have a topic when you pitch a podcaster that is really going to create some buzz and momentum for them and for you. And so that means, let me go through the rocks method, because and write this down as you're listening in, especially if you're finding it's hard for you to get booked, or maybe you're putting stuff out that's falling flat. Is your topic and your talking points relevant, outcome driven, credibility boosting, and has specificity? Here's what I mean by that. Relevant means when I go and pitch my topic to that podcaster, I am understanding the culture and the conversations that they're putting forward to their audience. And I have a unique topic that complements what's been happening on the show lately. Not the same thing 17,000 other people just posted
Love
about.
that.
Right. And so here I am, I'm talking about guesting on podcasts. I don't have a topic, unless somebody specifically requests it, how to get booked on podcasts. 10 million people are talking about that. It's super vanilla. What I teach is, one of my common topics I get booked on is how to leverage your competition how to tap into your competition and turn them into your number one 24/7 sales force.
Yeah, I love that. That was one of the things that I wanted to touch on. Yeah, I love that. And expand on, I know what it means, but what does that mean to someone tuning into this? I'm like, what the hell does that mean? Like a 24, so think about that. I know what it means as in a long-term play. That's more of a long play, because it's done by repetition, is done by touch points from my way of looking at it. But go ahead and expand on that if you can.
So what that means and how this ties into the rocks method. So the rocks method is picking topics that are relevant to your audience. They're outcome driven, meaning it's not just like, hey, how to get booked on podcasts, which is a feature. It's how to turn those podcasts into your best lead pool. And then credibility, that one's not so much on credibility, but enhanced in that you get that I know what I'm doing. And then specific is it's a specific thing that we're doing. Now, what that means is we're talking about all the podcasts out there. We're talking about how many people are actively creating content every week. So Chris, if I had approached you and we didn't necessarily have a relationship with you yet, and I said, hey, I know we have similar audiences. Would you be up for doing a webinar? That email might completely fall flat. It might take you months to say yes to it. If I was having an event and somebody blind pitched me and said, hey, Melanie, like, I know we share the same audience. I have a topic on customer service that I think would be great for your audience. I might be like, I have no idea who you are. But if somebody has a great pitch for me on my podcast, even though I know they're my competitor, but they're doing something different, I'm 99% more likely to have them on my show
100%.
than I would to book them on a webinar. So one of the fast accelerator, that's a double entendre, right? One of the accelerators of
fast accelerators, yeah.
Yes, fast acceleration, not just acceleration. But one of the accelerators to building your own list and getting high quality prospects into your own funnel, into your own customer journey, is to partner up with other people who serve your audience already.
100%, yeah, collaborate.
Not going to happen fast if we just do it the normal channels, right? But if you get it on a podcast, 99% more likely to tap into that warm lead pool that they've been cultivating a relationship with for years. So that's what it means.
I love that you said that at the very, very end of this, because people are not going to understand it. And another thing, they can even go to maybe go a little extra with it and say, hey, I really appreciate, and just showing how grateful you are being on that show to be able to, collaborate and I guess pick the brain of every single person listening, tuning in. Like, hey guys, do me a favor, give them how-tos or give them actionable steps on the show. I don't hear a lot of people doing stuff like that. Yeah. It's like, listen guys, I know you're tuning into this, but being conscious of the fact that someone's tuning in, they think that, okay, someone's eavesdropping on a conversation, but I'm talking to you. But as we're having a conversation, like, guys, and I've heard you do it just twice already, that shows that, obviously the level of expertise and you putting in the extra effort over the years, right, of interviewing people, because you're conscious of people are listening. Let me frame it for you to understand at a little deeper level. What Melanie is talking about is XYZ. This is how you go about doing this. Does that make sense to you? If it doesn't make sense, send us feedback in, and I'll make sure I'll get it over to Melanie. That's how it's done.
Yeah.
It's not I guess you would say a science fair project. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to make it so complex. Just engage. A lot of people, they're getting in front of a microphone, turning it on, and they think that people need to tune in to the show. I see a lot of this.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I don't know if this is exactly in line with what you're saying, but it's bringing up this awareness that is a podcast. Most of us are having a dialogue that's transmitted one direction.
Yeah.
So there's not a back and forth in the moment conversation that's happening. And I actually didn't think of this originally, but a couple of my friends who host podcasts, I was like, oh, snap. That's a great idea to take it to a whole another level of engagement. And so finding a way as a host or as a guest to create some kind of tell me how you're going to apply this. Or for us, one of the things we often do is like, hey, come join us in our Amplify Your Authority Facebook group, because that's my free group. And tell us how you're going to put this into action. If you've got questions, or, go to the show page, right? Whatever your best route is. Some people are starting to use Clubhouse for that, or they might have like a special email address, like shoot your questions here. But think beyond the transmission that's happening in the dialogue with the host and engage people in some way, shape, or form into action. That's where the know, like, and trust factor kicks in on a deeper level. And I think that's what we have to have if we want to be able to create conversations on podcasts that not just have massive value, but then actually can turn into someone we can help them solve the problem that they're struggling with, that we can move them into some kind of place of action. Because podcasting is a passive platform. You're listening, you're multitasking, you may or may not do something unless I create an easy and exciting way for you to connect with me further.
I love that you said that. And I guess the light bulb went off when you're just kind of conveying that message over to the listeners. And something that jumped out to me at big time was a lot of people, I hear a lot of shows and I consume a lot of content. I'm sure you do as well. I love content. Yeah. This is what I do for a living. I really love the art of framing and asking the right questions at the right time and really being present with that person. So I've been on other shows, and I'm sure you have as well. They'll read off a piece of paper and they're not actually present in that moment, like all those things. Melanie, what's your favorite 3 books? Like, what the freak? So, well, when you think that light bulb went off when you were talking, they're talking about the problem. They're not trying to solve the problem.
Yeah.
So think about that for a second. If you're a listener, if you're hearing other shows talking about the problem, we can have a conversation about all the problems in the world, but that isn't going to, I'm not going to make that rent in my head. I don't care about problems. What are the actionable steps for me to get around that problem? So here's how to go about doing that. But go ahead. Love it.
Well, I was just thinking about a common question that comes up for me. I believe that, let's talk about the guesting side for a minute. There's about 17 common mistakes people make. And these mistakes tend to disconnect the listener in some way, shape, or form, or it kind of erodes the connection we build in the conversation once they sign up for whatever it is we're going to offer them. What I find a biggie, and this just trips up so many people, is not understanding the balance of how much value to deliver before you're delivering too much value. And you're giving too much away and you're giving too much information. And then the person's kind of overwhelmed as they're listening in. They're like, wow, okay. And in some way, shape, or form, they feel like, oh, I know how to do this now. I'm just going to go figure it out on my own.
Yeah.
And from a kind of like from a sales perspective, if we just look at the energy of a selling process, we want to give people the confidence that we can help them solve that problem that they're struggling with, or get to an outcome they're craving and they're deeply desiring, without making them feel like, oh, I got everything I need, I'm going to figure it out on my own. Because here's the truth. They're going to get down the path. They're going to bump into problems. They're going to realize like, oh crap, I don't know how to do this and that. Now they've forgotten who they learned this from. They're not coming back to you. They're going to your competitor who's in front of them next. And that's how we lose the juice of being out there as a guest expert, magnetizing your message, is over delivering because you're feeling a lack of confidence. And you want to make sure you're like giving enough, but you're giving so much that you've now pulled the energy off of you as the expert.
And also when they get flustered when they're asked a question and they don't really know how to respond properly, they get so flustered, they're all over the place, and it's not really clear for the listener to understand what they really mean behind it. There's a fine line between surface level and too much information. I like to give enough information for them to understand and grasp the concept. From there, I'll say, okay, if you want to learn more on this topic, that's why giving away free stuff when I go on shows. Hey, here's a free link to get to my Facebook group. Here's a free link to consume some of my content. Come to my show. Let's tune into it. But I need to give them something actionable, not, hey, just go listen to my show. That's too broad.
Yeah. Like, or go get my freebie or whatever.
Yeah, come on, man. Like, here's 2 things that you can learn from me today on a little extra. And I would like
my trick.
Yeah, go ahead, please. I would love to hear this.
Okay. So I recognize that this is tricky for a lot of people. I worked with a ton of really passion-driven entrepreneurs who they come to me and they go, Melanie, like I keep over delivering and nobody's buying anything, right? So I designed this process that seems to be golden. And what it is it's called using bold influence formulas. So pop quiz, who, as you're listening in, can tell me where I already did this? Bold influence formula is to teach a concept with an acronym, a formula, or a catchphrase. Okay, so bonus points. I don't know if there's going to be like a show notes below here, or like reach out in some way.
Yeah, we have feedback. I usually try to open up that communication when there are feedback questions and stuff sent in. You'll get all that stuff. Yep.
Just pay attention to what Chris tells you to do. But I want to know if you caught where I did this already. Now, what this is going to do for you is it's showcasing your credibility, because a formula that you teach keeps you on point, keeps you from over delivering, and demonstrates your immense knowledge and talent by teaching a formula. For the listener, here's the magic for them. You're memorable.
Yep.
People remember the formula and they go, oh yeah, like Chris told me to do ABC, and like I remembered that 10 years later when I'm ready to hire him, or 1 year later, or
Right.
6
Like
months
there's this
later.
guy,
Right?
there's this bald guy. I think his name was Chris Ross. He mentioned this ABC method, and that
Yes,
really made
yes.
sense. And I got here, but yeah, go ahead. Just
Yeah.
fan. I love
But
this.
that's what happens. And I've had people who come back to me years later and say, oh, I remember when you talked about, for a long time, I had a catchphrase of superhero syndrome, or I would talk about bright, shiny object syndrome 21 years ago when it was first emerging, or whatever the thing was, right? And now I use the rocks method. You would not believe how many people email me, and I would love, DM me on social, whatever, and go, yeah, the rocks method, boom, that was a big aha for me. That's how you make yourself memorable, make yourself the go-to expert, but also deliver massive value without over delivering.
Love that. That was one of my first, I guess you would say, thought processes when I went to start going on shows. I've been, the host for a while, and I always had stuff to give people. And I was like, okay, well, I go on different shows. Like I'm the guest. They'll say, Chris, what is your method when you go to approach your very first phone call? You're cold calling someone. I'm like, okay, that's simple. The idea method. So you introduction, discovery, emotion, and appointment or action step. It's very simple.
Boom.
So
That's
think
it.
about it. Very simple. Introduction, you only do that once. I'm not going to introduce myself twice to you. Now that I've introduced myself, you know who I am. The next piece, discovery, I'm going to show my value by the questions. And that's going to elevate myself. They'll go, wow, this person knows what the hell he's talking about. And that's something, obviously they want to hear by the way that I'm asking questions. That's discovery. Then as I'm discovering more information, I'm going to tie in emotion, because emotion does what for people? Makes them do things, right?
Yeah.
But you're not trying to, I guess you would say, you talked about the shiny object syndrome. I'm not trying to persuade them to do something. I'm trying to see if they might be the right fit for the next action step.
Yes.
If they're not the right fit, it's like you're fishing.
Yes.
You reel in the fish, not big enough, send them off. But I always point them in the right direction. And I love that you just hit that method, because that sticks out. People will remember that. But if I said, I don't know, I approach a cold call differently because I do it this way, this way, this way, that's not going to be memorable at all. And it's all over. You're all over the place. I love that you said that. Thank you for sharing that with the listeners.
Yeah, of course. Well, again, this is actionable, right? Like if you're struggling with how to be memorable on a show, or you're out there doing all the right things, but it's actually not getting you results, chances are that, one of these messaging components is broken, or it's not, I like to call it amplified rather than optimized, but you get the point. Like there's little tweaks that deliver massive shift in results. And a lot of times people are frustrated, or they're overwhelmed, or they're feeling like they're doing all the right things, but the puzzle pieces aren't going together right for them. And oftentimes we're trying to solve problems we've created because we're overcomplicating things, or this is not our superpower. It happens to be my superpower because I've done it so much. And it's one of my most it's like my heart just fills up when I see somebody shift their message and they start getting booked, they start getting clients, their lead magnet starts to perform better, whatever that combination is for them. And, it's just because I'm doing what I do best. And we've got to teach people how to do what they do best, so that superpower is amplifying out there in the world, and you're visible as the expert that you are.
Right. One thing I do love about, especially what you're mentioning, you talk about where you get your fulfillment from, is serving and watching people grow and go, oh my God, I never thought I would be able to do this. Very similar to this. I'm always plugged in to my energy source if I'm serving, because that's where I over deliver in certain areas when I'm really working with someone, but I'm not going to over deliver when you don't know me from a can of paint. There's no credibility there, and there's no trust. Trust is a foundation of any relationship.
I agree.
So you got to build that trust, but how to develop the foundation for that trust, you need to lay down a framework and give them something to do. Like think about this overall. Here's here's another area of opportunity. Melanie, what's your point of view on this? Pretty simple question, but did I ask you for your expert opinion? A lot of people aren't doing this. And that's where I see that's one of the biggest issues I see when sales that jumps out to me the most, when they go, oh, Chris, you're a sales guy. No, I'm an entrepreneur. I made my bones an entrepreneur in sales. That's where I come from. but I didn't really do sales because it was education. So like, what is your message? So that's one of my first questions when I ask people, and I had that first point of contact. What's your message? I know you want to come on my show, but what are you trying to deliver?
Yes, totally.
What do you
What's
the
difference you're going to make?
Yes.
You know, how are you going to add value to the conversation that's going? Yeah, I totally agree. Can we go back to this thing about trust for a second?
Please.
And again, you know, keep in mind that for most of the time you're guesting in some way, you don't get to have like a visual connection, right? Like I love that your show has the video component to it, but we don't always have that. And so one of the ways I think we build trust is going back to the rocks method, is that sense of I am helping paint a golden thread between the problem my client or that listener is struggling with and how I'm uniquely qualified to help them solve it, or uniquely qualified to help them get there, because of the credibility you layer in a non-hypey way, by the way, so that you're sharing through case studies or maybe your own life experience. And this comes with practice. It comes with confidence. You know, you have to have the confidence to say, you know, to share what you've accomplished without it making you feel weird. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I feel weird talking about that thing that I've done over there because I don't want to seem all hypey. Dude, if they don't know you, they don't know this about you. This is the one thing that gets them to go, oh, they know what they're talking about. Because, you know, for me, it's like I've been on the executive board of Women's Speakers Association for 10 years. I've, you know, worked with some of the greatest thought leaders in our online industry and helped them get out of that $250,000 a year cap to breaking 7 figures. So what is your story?
Exactly.
And could we just talk about mindset for a minute, Chris? Because
100%.
You know,
I love this.
Your show is so much about edge, right? Like what gives us our competitive edge? And I want to share something that I think is really up for a lot of people right now. And that is, I think at least half of our community is struggling with their mindset. They are tapped into the doubts. They're comparing themselves to others. They're like looking out there and going, wow, there's so many people that do what I do. Like, who's going to listen to me? And this is not doing anyone a service. I have had those moments too. I've been in business 21 years this year, 21 years. I guarantee you there have been years, there's days, there's been months, and certainly years where I wanted to stop. I wanted to give up. But the one thing I give every single person who's listening in today a challenge to do is on those days where everything's really hard, you're comparing yourself to everyone else, you're wondering if you're enough and you've got what matters, you have to plug into what is the thing that I am uniquely designed to do? What's my superpower? And who is it that's out there that needs what I do in my unique way? There are always people who are desperately seeking for you, your message, your heart, your passion, and they need exactly what you do. And that's what we have to focus on. And honestly, Chris, that's the mindset reboot I oftentimes had to give myself to get past those rough parts, you know?
It's the process you have to go through every single day. Just like if you maybe have went through a traumatic experience, before you can get to a place where you're at peace with your past or whatever the situation might have been for someone, you've got to start the healing process. And the key word there is start. So what does that mean? And that starts with here. First, because you can't control the things entering your brain and what you think about. You can control how you feel about what you're thinking about. And that's done by you really digging in, and that's cultivation of silence, cultivation of self-discovery, and learning how to direct those into a positive outlet, that anything is possible. But that's the abundant shift. And I want to talk about that just for a second with you. With 21 years of experience as an entrepreneur, that's something that people need to pop some champagne and hit some fireworks. Most people don't make it to 1 year, Melanie. You know?
Totally.
I love that you said 21 years, because 21 is more than 20, and you could have failed at 21. You see what I'm saying? So that's important for people to understand. But when you're making that shift in the abundance type of lifestyle and looking at it, there's enough air we breathe, there's enough money, there's enough success for everyone, so that way you can stop comparing yourself to everyone else's journey. And you talk about meanness and you-ness. can you talk about that, how important it is as an entrepreneur to make that shift in an abundant type of lifestyle?
Oh, there's so many things I want to talk about. We could do a whole episode just on this, but I think the bottom line is this, is like, one of my sayings is, you can focus on why it won't work, or you can focus on why it will. You can go and collect evidence for all the things that could go wrong, or you could focus on the one reason it could go right. And that has been my biggest growth. I had to do a lot of inner work, inner reprogramming. I had to program my mind to succeed rather than fail. I spent the first 2 years of my business struggling my butt off. Like, I had no idea how to make money.
We all did. We all did.
I'm like, wait, and I didn't have a great message. Nobody could figure out what I did. I didn't know what I did. And so, everything I teach is from my own journey. And then, as I've seen my own clients succeed with those steps.
That's what makes it special and unique. Go ahead.
Yeah. But, I think the key is in our thinking is we have to decide, are you all in, or are you just merely interested
Knowing
in
the difference.
succeeding?
Right.
And this is why people start podcasts that fail. They're interested in having a podcast. They're passionate about a subject and they think, oh, I'll start a podcast about it. There's no strategic plan. There's no clear, connection between the greater payoff, whether that's adding value in the world, making a difference, whatever that is for each person. For me, it's creating a profit, eventually like attracting clients with it. But we have to have clarity about, I'm all in and I'm going to weather every storm. The storm's not going to blow me out of the water and sink my ship. It might take longer, but I'm all in and I'm committed. And I think that's what's missing for a lot of people, certainly people that come to me. And this is, I was thinking as we were talking earlier about a client of mine who I've worked with on and off for about 8 years now. And we were talking about healing. Like, this is somebody who had a lot of trauma in her background. And she had made really great money from her skill, but she was not plugged into her superpower.
Yeah.
And so I do a lot of mindset work as well as strategy and design of packages, because sometimes we're just stuck. And I had to help her recognize where she needed to do some physical healing. Like, her body was reacting to a lot of food allergies, and, she was exhausted and had some stuff she had to clean up there. We had to do some mindset rewiring. We had to plug her into, are you all in on this, or are you just interested? And we had to plug her into, like, what's the great payoff in moving this great body of work she had developed out into the world in a bigger way. And then we had to unravel all the toxins and energy drains that were holding her back. And we talk about healing. If you're going to have great work in the world, you're going to do big things, you're going to take big, bold leaps, you got to make sure you're amplified. You got to make sure you're supercharged. And that means you got to do the work from the inside out.
Yeah. Everything's internal. That's what people have a hard time of understanding. You have everything inside of you right now, what you need to manifest the life of your dreams, everything internal. Like, your internal dialogue is the most important thing when it comes to business, sales, mindset. I don't care if you're trying to set up a lemonade stand. You know what I mean? You got to be the best person to sell the lemonade. And why should they come and experience lemonade at your stand? You're not telling a story.
Why is your lemonade magical?
Right, exactly. I'm like, I don't put sugar in it. It's really tart. Then I sell you this. So I take a program.
Or I put some pink grapefruit in with the yellow grapefruit. Yeah. It's got a little extra zing.
Like, I went to this lemonade stand. I had a phenomenal time. I don't even know what happened, but the drinks suck. Sometimes that might happen. But
and that's a great point. Sometimes it's the customer service, not the quality of the drink itself. It's the experience, that joy they get in going to buy the lemonade and the conversation they have with you versus the actual delivery of what happens. Not that we want to have bad lemonade, but you get the point.
I know, I get, because I think that as we're having a conversation right now and recording this for the many listeners, even with your network, and are tuning into this, the world's evolving. It's changing. Systems are changing. I mean, Clubhouse came out of nowhere, and you're now starting to see people coming from podcasting doing a lot more Q&As and a little bit more of those type of conversations, where it's a lot more engagement, and their downloads are starting to go through the roof on their own show, because maybe they're interviewing guests and their guests are really wanting to hear from them because they showed up for them, but they stay for the guest. They're like, well, I wish they would talk a little bit more and give him an opportunity to speak on his own and talking in front of a microphone. That's some of the things that I'm very passionate about. Is like, that's why I go on a lot of other shows. That's my way of being able to express myself. And also network. People say networking isn't, I'm going to pass you a bunch of business cards and, hey, here's a couple free links, Melanie, on get this out to your audience if you don't mind. No, it's not done by that way. It's done through connection. Love and connection is what we're all after. Those are the two biggest things that we need on a daily basis. And we don't have those things on a daily basis. We start to suppress. We start to move away from certain things. We start shame, guilt, and you start pointing fingers on why you're not successful. Well, Melanie's been doing this for 8 years. That's a limiting belief. I've met podcasters that had 10 episodes and got an amazing amount of growth because they don't care what their listeners, they don't care about the results. They're trying to deliver that message. How important is that? To really shine a light on your message and get really good about communicating that over properly.
Well, here's my belief about a magnetic message, whether you're the podcaster or the guest, you're just looking for ways to stand out. Maybe it's on Clubhouse. It's funny you brought that up because I was actually like, do I bring up Clubhouse? Do I not bring up bright, shiny object, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, but you have to utilize that as a tool. So that is a powerful tool. And just like podcasting and all the other stuff, it's a tool.
Yes.
But people aren't viewing it as a tool. They think, oh my God, it's a new thing. It's something else I got to freaking do. But go ahead.
Yeah. So I believe that the message is queen and consistency is king. Ooh. And together they rule the world. So if you can create a message that has impact, that creates that know, like, and trust factor, because you're speaking to the people who need and want and resonate with what you're about, and you consistently deliver it across all the platforms, whatever platforms you're on, then what happens is the result occurs. If you lead with result, I got to get results, you will always be disappointed. You will always feel like you don't have enough.
100%.
And so, there are people that their value system is structured for winning. And so oftentimes they're going to measure success based on results. I don't want you to just be in the message and never get results, but you do. I believe if you lead with the message, you lead with adding value, and you do that consistently, the results will happen if you've built the right message.
Mm-hmm. And I love that you said it, built the right message, but sometimes they say, oh, I'm not getting a result just yet. I'm just kind of like flexing. And you're talking about that bridging that golden gap, right? That bridge, pretty much. When you're
golden thread.
When you're looking at in that type of way, in that perspective, you are getting a result. If people are tuning in and they're listening to you, that's a result. Go back and listen to your message when you were a guest on that show with Melanie and break down how you went about answering her question. I'm telling you, my success, I probably wouldn't even be here right now. Now, if I didn't 12 years ago when I started doing sales, if I didn't go all the way back to that time and start recording my voice, when I started recording myself, I don't listen for me. I don't even like my voice. I'm listening for what they're not telling me. Mm-hmm. And when I started framing it differently and sort of delivering a message, my tonality, being conscious of that, it's the same thing with podcasting. I feel like I'm built for this because I've done this for my whole career. And that's something I love about the way that you drive activity and so many different actionable steps from your show. There's not a lot of people out there doing that.
Yeah,
it's too scattered. You're welcome. It's too scattered. They're all over the place. They don't know where to send them, but they're looking for a result though. But your result by what you're saying, love it.
And I should probably say, like, this is an evolution. This is not about perfection out of the gate. And I learned a lot along the way, and we course corrected. Mm-hmm. And if you go back to the early episodes, and please don't, they're kind of like scary. The audio quality wasn't so great. I had a mic that someone recommended, and I later learned it was not a great mic. So, that's a
big motivator. That's a big motivator as well, though. Think about that overall, as in maybe one of your consumers and just tuning in, and you're going to see the growth of Melanie.
Yeah,
that's what people are after. They want to grow, correct? Well, they want to see that you have grown and you have got better and a little bit more fine-tune your approach. But please expand on that. I love this. Thank you for sharing this.
Yeah, well, I think people, again, another trap, a mindset trap is, I got to get it right. Mm-hmm. I can't afford to get it wrong. And this is not where you find your edge. Your edge is, I'm going to take the leap. and I'm going to get in, and I have this, I did an episode in the first year on the 80% plan, because you got to get 80% of it figured out, take the leap, and you're going to fine tune the other 20% along the way anyway. Yeah. So why hold yourself into perfection and not do anything? And I had to say, like, and sometimes I'm like, oh God, I can't believe we put that out there, but I'd rather be in action, imperfect action, than no action at all. Mm-hmm. And that's what allows you to get real-time feedback about what's going to work and what's not going to work. Anybody who's been in business long enough, like I have and you have, you know, you're going to fail 10 times for every one success.
Yes.
There's going to be 10 things that don't work, and the one thing that just takes off. And use it as information to evolve and grow. I'm constantly evolving. The brand I have today is not the brand I started with. I've had several very expensive rebrands along the way.
3 years ago, you did a big one.
I did a huge one 3 years ago. Yeah.
When you're making that shift, a lot of people that are not confident enough to be able to look at what's their results right now and say, okay, here's the area of opportunity for me to make a little proper shift and doing a whole rebranding. But if you can't just put lipstick on a pig, you know what I mean? Well, yet that comes from internal. Like, okay, that comes from you. Like, all right, how do I reinvent myself? Every single second that goes by, it's an opportunity for you to reinvent yourself.
And not only are we growing as individuals, but the market's changing.
Yep.
And a big reason I pivoted was the market had changed so dramatically from my first 10 years of big success. And I was like, that's just not working anymore. And that's, you know, there's so much noise in that particular topic. Like and I grew and I became, you know, a better version of what I teach. I learned new things. And so we have to balance both of those and allow ourselves to continue to evolve our message without, and here's the little trick, is chasing bright, shiny ideas. It's not about leaping to something new because what you're trying isn't working. It's about recognizing, where am I supposed to be? What are my real superpowers? How does that match the market that needs and wants what I have? And optimizing everything you do, from your message to your marketing, to your packaging, to your business model. And then if you're like, this is not me, this is not working, or I feel like I've grown and I need to kind of shift, that's when we make the change.
Right. And you have to be conscious of what effort and energy you are putting into something. I see a lot of times they'll go like, Chris, I really want to become an entrepreneur. I really want to get to that 7 to 8 figure, that 9 figure type of numbers. I'll say, okay, so what's your value? Okay, well, what do you mean value? Okay, well, I'll start asking questions. Well, now I'm starting to really identify areas of opportunity, what they're lacking. So if you want to earn this type of, you need to turn yourself into the type of person that is already in your mind, that person. That's a different version of yourself. And I think that comes for a lot of emotional intelligence on measuring and reassessing and knowing, and I guess you would say anticipating, like the marketplace and the shifts that are changing. Mm-hmm. They don't know what's happening. There's not enough expertise. There's no experience there. They don't know what they need to change. I think that this is the decade for women entrepreneurs, in my opinion, because of the marketplace and all the messaging is changing, where people are wanting not just information, but they really want to feel more engagement. And then using your emotional intelligence, you'll be able to extract that information. But if you're not conscious of that, then you're going to fail today. Because anybody can go online right now and buy something and a landing page. Why should you buy it? Get on the phone and ask them. This is not working. Ask your clients. Why is it not working? Where's the disconnect, do you think, Mr. Ross? Where's the disconnect? They're like, well, I don't know. I don't feel that this will have a lot of value in today's marketplace. Let them tell you that and then make the proper adjustments. Do you feel that this decade would be more of the decade for women entrepreneurs? I'm not insinuating that women aren't already killing it. You're not going to cover off the ball, but I'm talking about just on that emotional intelligence, one-sided understanding.
Well, that's a whole huge thing to unpack.
Right. Yeah, I know. Yeah. And I know that we have to be conscious of the time, because I think that I probably can have conversations with you for like 5 hours on different.
That's what I was thinking too. I feel like a series coming.
Yeah, we should. That'd be great.
Yeah, totally. Right. But so just in terms of the female entrepreneur, emerging, I think with what's happened in our world with online businesses and the online, so many of us had to pivot to online this year. And I think what it's done is it's made entrepreneurship available to people who before didn't recognize it could be done for them.
Yep.
I think the female kind of talent area, the emergence of badass, powerful women in business has been on a rise for the last 10 years. I know when I started, it was still very male dominated, and it was a little intimidating at times to kind of find my power in the midst of so many big male energies that taught similar things. But what I've saw it flip, particularly about 9-10 years ago, and now I think it's just going to continue to rise. And I think a lot of it is just when a woman can see another woman who's powerful, authentic, and relatable, it gives her that inspiration, like, I can do that too. So the more of us women who are out there willing to stand in our power, maybe have some big faux pas, which I've certainly had, have some huge failures, and keep showing up and keep doing it and keep delivering value to our communities, it gives more women permission. And I am super passionate about helping more women see that possibility. I've set myself a goal to help 100,000 women in the next 5 years step into their power and amplify their message in the world.
And you put them on you obviously spotlight them and make it okay and create that environment. It all goes back to that. Like, make it okay for them. But you have to give yourself permission to be successful. That's another part. It's like, give yourself permission. Let's give yourself permission. Like, don't you believe that you deserve the life of your dreams, business of your dreams?
Remove the conflict. And a lot of women have some deep conflict.
I need a button. Bing, ding, 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 button. I know that we've unpacked a lot, even just from our conversation today. And I've learned more about you. And I'm actually a little bit more intrigued in another area of opportunity of me coming on your show and really diving into a lot of ways on delivering content that people need to hear, not just because they want to hear it. And that's what I've kind of learned from this. But I know that there's an actionable step. There's some things that you're going to give away for a little, I wouldn't say shiny object, because there's a lot of value there. And I'll let you talk about that now.
Well, we've talked a lot about messaging today. And depending on how you are going to get your message out there in the world, you want to make sure that you are doing it in a way that's not disconnecting that momentum that you're building with the lead. And I've studied what actually works, what gets people from a podcast interview or a podcast or a webinar or whatever you're doing into action. And I realized there are 17 common mistakes people make. So I studied what does work. I study what doesn't work. I put together this free guide, and you can get it at melaniebenson.com/win-win effect. Just based on the show, you remember that. And what you'll find is when you go through it is like, here's the things that people do that basically lose you the lead. It disconnects that energy that the client is looking for to choose you, and what to do instead.
The one way for them to make sure that, obviously they click the link and it goes right to your funnels, and I'm assuming, and they get a little bit more feedback from that, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And it leads you to, if you're looking for more resources, it's a great place to start to get to know other solutions we offer. It'll lead you to join me in my Facebook group if you want to come in and keep the dialogue going there. So
yeah, definitely. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, guys, with this, you just go to our website. There's so much value there. It's just ridiculous. I went on your website, I think it was last week, or maybe it was a week before when we had our initial conversation. I was like, holy crap, there's so much there. Like, I don't even know where to start. We're going to have like 10 episodes, but I know that I can talk to you for hours, and I'm going to be conscious of time because I got a hard stop as well. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing all the information you did with the guest.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I can't wait to keep this conversation going. I'm looking forward to connecting with you as you're listening.
Yes. All right. Good stuff. Thank you so much again. Guys, y'all take care. Be well, be you. Just be great. Just go win. Peace out, guys.